A number of the old machines in the shop had broken handles, the lathe specifically, and it drove me nuts. And so I know I could buy handles, but why buy them when you can make them? And so the first project on the Simco Turn HL320 was to make some lathe handles. The stock I'll be using for this project is 1-inch bar that's recycled from the weight room. Starts out with a 2D sketch and came up with something traditional. Looks like it'll be comfortable. The sketch was then revolved and created a 3D model. On older US machines, 3/8/16 right-hand thread is pretty common. The cam for this one is pretty straightforward. Going to rough it down with an OD tool. Going to thread it with a inserted thread cutting tool, and then finish off the profile with a V cutter. Before I could get started, I had to make sure that I could actually thread on this machine. And so I had to modify the post processor to allow the canned threading cycle, G76, to operate. And this took a little bit, but here you can see I have a sample of a piece of bar and the thread fit just fine. A canned cycle is a way of conveniently performing repetitive CNC machine operations. Canned cycles automate certain machine functions such as drilling, boring, threading, pocketing, and etc. Canned cycles are so called because they allow the concise way to program a machine to produce a feature of a part. A canned cycle is also known as a fixed cycle. Post-processors are generally fairly generic, and so getting into the finer details of canned cycles often requires the user to do some modification and adjustment in the post-processor code. Here I'm reviewing the manual to make sure that I get everything set up just so it will work. It is important to utilize canned cycles whenever you can, especially on older machines with limited memory, as you can accomplish a lot of work with a limited memory resource. This part broke a lot of conventional wisdom with regards to stick out, but I was able to pull it off, and I just left a little bit of material so I could just snap the part off when I was done. The finish on this mystery bar wasn't so great, so I hit it with some sandpaper and got it to a nice shine and then broke it off. The clousing hand wheels needed to be drilled and tapped, and this was done on the CNC mill. This is the hand wheel fitted on the lathe. We used the plain steel handles for quite a while, but the goal was ultimately to nickel plate them. And so I picked up some supplies from Caswell Plating, and these are some of our first attempts at nickel plating in the shop. And it turned out fantastic. It was super easy. I also made a couple handles for the tailstock lock. They turned out nice. One of the things that we've discovered with a lot of the finishing processes is that they take time. And so it's not uncommon to start a process and then you go to lunch and you forget about it, and it's the next day or two before you realize that you left something in the plating solution. And here you can see a handle. It's been plated with about 30 thousandths of material. It's so thick that the threads have filled in and the wire that was hanging it can no longer be removed. Thanks for watching the short video on making lathe handles for the shop.